Brett? Awesome. I'm not going to repeat all that I just said. We're talking about reproducing yourself. And so one of the things that is so important for you, if whatever ministry area that you serve in, is that you're able to reproduce yourself. A lot of you right now are in ministry areas that you're going to have to give up in order to go to this new campus. It's going to be important that in 12 weeks, because we're only 12 weeks away now, in 12 weeks, that when you give it up, it not only continues, but it gets better. And so that needs to be a goal of yours, no matter what you do. If it's teaching children's Sunday school like Brad does, it needs to get better. And so we're going to be talking about how do we find people so that we can train them up so that that can get better whenever we leave and whatever we do. And then when we get to the new campus, what does it look like when we're always looking for new people to train up? Because one of the best ways to keep people in church, one of the best ways for people to grow in their faith is to begin serving. And so one of the greatest things that we can do is help people do that. Because God's created us to be servants. And so when we don't let other people serve, we're robbing them of what God wants for them and what can make them a complete Christian. And so we need to be constantly on the lookout for helping people find areas of service and bringing people up. Billy Graham admitted recently that if he had to do life over again, I shared this with you, talking about the master plan of evangelism, but if he had to do life over again, he said that it would be wiser to spend time investing in 12 people like Jesus did, rather than to keep doing revival after revival. He was realizing that ministry really couldn't continue without him. And while we would say it was a very successful life, by all means, true success happens when you have a successor. And so our goal tonight is to help you find and train your successor. Before you even begin, I want you to be thinking about how do you work yourself out of this job. And so one of the things that I preach, and I think Amanda could definitely nod to this, one of the things I preach to staff here, whenever I get a chance to speak, don't let me do it too often, but when I do, I preach that you need to be working your way out of a job. Because when you are doing the ministry, you're robbing it from other people. And so it's going to be very important for all of us who are all leaders to be in that same type of mindset. If we're to be successful, we must reproduce ourselves. And so how? How do you do that? How do you find people? How do you train people to be able, mentor people to be able to succeed you and to replace you? And one of the most important scriptural principles for sake of memory is called the 2-2-2 principle. It's from 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 2. The 2-2-2 principle. And Paul tells Timothy this, Timothy, what you have heard from me through the many witnesses, teach other people who will be able to teach others as well. And so what Paul wants for Timothy to do is to make disciples who make disciples. To make followers who then in return make followers. To get mentees who then in return get other mentees. And what happens when that happens, things grow exponentially. And ministry is done exponentially. Growth in the kingdom is done exponentially. And so there's this pattern that Paul was a mentor to Timothy, that he told him to teach others who can teach others. And the reason that we have the gospel message today is because that happened. If that wouldn't have happened, the faith wouldn't have been passed on. And so one of the ways that God worked through the lives of the early church was to find people to reproduce themselves. And so to put it another way, our goal for during this launch season of this next year is to be sure that you are a healthy spiritual person. That means you're going to be reproducing yourself. But specifically, it's going to mean that you'll have 3 different types of people in your life. And so if you have your the paper that we handed you, you need a Paul, you need a Barnabas, and you need a Timothy. Every single one of us need a Paul. Every single one of us need a Barnabas. Every single one of us need a Timothy. And so Paul is a mentor. Who do you have in your life that is wiser than you, that can speak into your life, and that can call you out when you need called out? People that you can lean on when you're going through a tough time. People that you know you can go to and get sound advice from. Everybody needs a mentor. So who is that? Everybody needs a Barnabas in their lives. And a Barnabas worked alongside of Timothy as an encourager and a friend. If you go to any, at least it's in the high school mission trips, all the high school mission trips, we do these things called Barnabas Buddies. And they're just these little bags, people's pictures on them, and throughout the week you put encouraging notes in there. And so all of us need a Barnabas in our life. We all need somebody that we can lean on in the tough times, that can encourage us when we're feeling down, whatever we're going through in life. We need somebody there that can be with us and walk beside of us. We all need a Barnabas. And lastly, and what might be hard for some of us, we all need a Timothy. We all need to be intentionally investing in others. Right? And so part of the climb is this I, which means investing in key relationships. That's not just investing in mentors, which is very important. It's not just investing in certain friends and in children and in spouses, but we need to be investing in others that we can pass things on to, that we're training up in the faith. And so all those are very important. And so I want you to be thinking to yourself, do you have those three? And so one of the things I want you to fill out on this little page, I want you to write some names down of who those three people are so that you can begin thinking in that way. And so tonight we're going to be talking about, so if you don't have all three or you're looking for one or for all of the three, then use this formula to help find people. And so one of the best ways to be able to find people, whether it be a mentee or a mentor, is to follow this pattern of these 5C people. And so if you can find a 5C person in your life, those are people you need to be spending time with. Those are people you need to be investing in. And so when we talk about key relationships, it's really easy to think about spouse, it's really easy to think about children, but then we also need these 5C people in our lives. And so when you find a 5C person, this is a person that you should be willing to drop everything to be able to invest in. And so the 5 C's are this. 5C people have this. They have character. Are they Christ-like in their lifestyle? 5C person has a calling. Do they show signs of being called to that area of ministry, or are they just filling a void? 5C people have chemistry. Do they have good people skills? And one of the things to ask yourself when you're talking to somebody is, do you get a warm, positive, emotional feeling whenever you interact with this person? Because chances are, if you do, others will as well. 5C person is capable. They have capability. They can do what they say they can do. It's one thing to say you can do something. It's another thing to be able to do what you say you can do. And lastly, a 5C person has commitment. Do they keep showing up? Are they committed to doing what's important? So character, calling, chemistry, compatibility, and commitment. A 5C person. This is really important because whenever you're able to find somebody that you believe is a 5C person, you're able to build a base from that. You're able to then intentionally invest in people and know that your time's not being wasted. You're able to intentionally invest in people knowing that you're going to be able to see fruit from that investment and from those relationships. And so I want to talk just a second about training and what does training look like. And you can apply this almost universally. One of the people that I talk with about this on a regular basis is Lucas Higgins, our Director of Contemporary Worship, because it applies really easily to what he does. But it applies to all of us in every way of life, whatever profession that we might work in, whatever we do, we can use this formula to mentor people. And so it's a simple formula of 5 steps. The first step is this: I do, you watch, we talk. So I'll apply it back to Lucas. It's really easy and artist type stuff for him to lead worship, for a potential 5C worship leader to watch, and then afterwards for them to talk, for them to have discussion about what happens. Second step, I do, you help, we talk. Again, related to Lucas, it's really easy for him to be able to lead worship, to have somebody help him lead worship, and then for a relationship and discussion to ensue after that. The third step is you do, I help, we talk. This is a huge one and very difficult to do. Do you see what is big about it? Because the mentor, no longer has the lead. The mentee takes the lead. And so that means the mentor has to be willing to give up control. The mentor has to be willing to step out of the spotlight for other people to step into the spotlight. They have to be willing to not take credit for things and to be able to give the credit to the mentee. And so you do, I help, and then we talk. The fourth one, you do, I watch, we talk. And then the fifth one, you do, someone else watches. And so by the time you get to step 5, you have trained somebody fully, and then they become the mentor to another mentee. And so one of the important things to note about this is that all 5 steps can take years. Depending on what it is, they could take weeks. They could take days, they could even take hours. So that's all contextual. But it's an important thing that you intentionally, when you're mentoring somebody, continually step back. Continually work your way out of a job is a really easy way to put it. So how did Jesus train people? And so one of the things that the Master Plan of Evangelism is teaching us is this whole very theoretical but somewhat practical way that Jesus trained people and trained specifically his disciples. But one of the ways that I want to make sure that we understand as leaders is that Jesus trained people by asking questions. Jesus asked or was asked up to 180 questions throughout the 4 Gospels. Yet Jesus only answered 7 of them. He was asked 180 questions, yet only answered 7 of them. Questions like, who do people say that I am? What do you want me to do for you? Why are you afraid? How does salt lose its saltiness? All of these questions that Jesus asked, yet didn't really answer any of them. And so if you're going to be a good leader, you have to ask good questions. And that becomes really important as you strategize, as you come up with stuff. It's going to be really important that you ask the right questions. And so I want to be able to try to help you do that. And so if you look on the back of your page, you have 6 critical questions to ask as a leader. And then your other page is from probably one of the most important books of my life. It's called Asking Profound Questions by Bob Dyll. Has anybody heard of this at all? It's divided into 10 chapters, doing in 10 different areas, and ask 10 questions per chapter. Areas like asking profound questions to avoid small talk, and you have a copy of that particular chapter. Brainstorming questions, career type questions, interviewing questions, parenting questions, solving complex problem questions. But it's really important that we ask good questions. And so the best question always to ask is why. It's really easy whenever we make decisions. It's really easy whenever you make decisions at home, in your personal life. It's really easy in the church life to not ask why. To go on gut, to go on hard facts or whatever it might be. But how often do we ask the question why? That's such an important question because it causes us to dig deeper and deeper. It causes us to try to find out what the foundation of what we believe is. A big picture vision question to ask people is this. If you could do anything you wanted and knew for certain that you couldn't fail, what would you do? What would happen if we in churches started asking that question? That if we could do anything we wanted and we knew for certain that we couldn't fail, that we had unlimited resources, we had unlimited people, we had unlimited time and money, and we knew that we couldn't fail, what would we do? I'm not sure. The third one, to understand adult comfort zones. And this is one that he's apparently done his PhD research in, is that he says, he's a sociologist, he says that 9 years old is the most important year of your life. And so I don't know how true that is, but it makes sense when he sort of describes it a little bit. But that at 9 years old, sociologically, you develop a lot of different stuff. And so a question to be able to ask people, what were you like in 4th grade? What was life like in 4th grade? And so I want to just talk just a little bit about this. So, for example, were you the captain of everything? Were you on the team but not the captain? Were you off to the side, not playing the game but watching? Were you the loner who didn't care that the game was being played? Were you a child who always had one best friend, 3 pals with whom you seemed to be inseparable, friendly to everyone but close to no one? Or were you a relational loner? And it just goes on about all these different things at that time that are really important. So what were you like in 4th grade? You can learn a lot about people from that. A question to get instant spiritual depth. What 3 changes in your life would be most pleasing to God? Now, if you had a relationship with somebody and you asked them that question so that they could trust you and they were open to it, they were transparent with it, imagine what kind of conversation you'd have with somebody if they answered that truthfully. What 3 changes in your life would be most pleasing to God? To understand their shape, to understand who they are and what they're about. Of all the things that you do well, what do people say you do best? Of all the things that you do well, what do people say you do best? And the best non-threatening question, is there something heavy on your shoulders today? And so one of the printout that I gave you is all about avoiding small talk. And in church, we are awful at small talk, right? We run into people, we have really small talk. How are you? How are you doing? How's the family? That's all small talk because we almost always get good, good, good. And so these are questions that help us avoid small talk. Where do you see your, number 7 on that printout, where do you see yourself 10 years from now? It's amazing how many people have never asked themselves that question. But that's such an important question. For our new campus, that's a really important question. For our church, that's a really important question. Where do we see ourselves 10 years from now? And so I just want you to take that and to be able to look over that and practice it and see if it does make a difference for you. And so what I want to do now is to be able to split up into new groups of 3 or 4 or whatever and talk about this idea of reproducing yourself. And so go ahead and do that. And if you have any questions, come up here. Feel free to ask.